Hello everybody, I'm Adam and welcome back to my channel where I make a tabletop role-playing game from scratch on camera, and today we're going to talk about combat in a non-combat game. Now before we start today's episode, I just want to remind you of the 96 likes. Before I started this project of Explorers RPG, I've been using this book to just note down different stuff that is role-playing related. And well, all of this is fun and interesting for world builders, for role players and so on. So 96 likes and I will go through all the 96 pages that I have here. And while you're down there, please press the subscribe button because, well, I want subscribers. As you might have noticed, I started this without actually recording, but that doesn't matter because, well, we're here. We can still talk about how non-combat games can use combat. Now, what I mean is that in many combat-centric games, it is explicitly said what combat is. It's explicitly a completely different game from the rest of the game. You might have noticed that, let's for instance say in D&D, where whenever you say roll for initiative, that is very equivalent to the Pokemon combat initiation screen where you just say, okay, now there's combat. This is a completely different game from the other game that you were previously doing, which was a role-playing game, and now this is a combat-centric mini game within the role-playing game, right? And I don't want that to happen in my game. I don't want combat to be explicitly written down as this is a separate mini game that you're working on. I want it to be implicitly made. I want it to be, yes, free-flowing into a combat and free-flowing out of it. Don't have any initiative tracking, no turn-based, no action economy, none of that. Well, is it possible? I'm gonna try it. So I'm starting here with something that I like to call the action-reaction model. Now, I am not a game designer, so I have no idea if this actually is a thing or not, but this is what I like to call it. So what happens here is that the players, they do actions. The GM says, there's a door here, what do you want to do? And then the GM has an action, say they want to kick down the door. And then the GM says, the door is open, that is the reaction, right? The door is now open. And then the GM throws the ball back to the players and say, okay, what do you want to do now when the door is open? And then they can say, we want to walk in or something, right? And just moving back and forth in this here situation. Now, the GM can also take the initiative and start acting, where they say, for instance, okay, there's a door in front of you, what do you want to do? The player says, I want to kick down the door is open. Now 100 goblins is pouring out from the doorway, right? That is an action. Stuff is happening in front of you. How do you react? And again, the GM, if they want to, they can just add on to the action and keep the initiative going. They can say, okay, we want to run away. Well, suddenly there's another 100 goblins coming in from every other doorway. What do you want to do, right? And so in that case, the GM has the initiative and says, do this. What do you want to do now and now and now? Now, in combat, this is very explicitly written down. You have the players on their turn saying, okay, this is your action, what do you want to do? I want to use my move action to move 30 feet. I want to use my attack action to attack that person. And then the reaction is the person takes damage, right? And then you have the at some point the monster has the initiative, and then they say, okay, the monster attacks you, you take a damage, what do you want to do? I attack it, the monster takes damage, it attacks back, and so on. So this here is how also combat works. Now let's break down all of this into something more explicit or implicit. So I want to introduce moments where time is essential. It's not that you go into rounds or turns or all of this. You just say time is essential, right? The moment-to-moment decision making is important for you right now. And then that also means that distance is important. I want the game to have abstract distances where things are either close, near, or far away, where close is within corona distance, near is in safe corona distance, and far is just further away, right? And so you can say each and every object within the world and each and every person and so on has a distance relationship with you. You're either close to each other, you're either far away from each other, right? If something is far away from you and you're just moving close to it, it doesn't really matter how much time you spend. If it's not a moment-to-moment decision, if I spend 2 minutes to walk over there or 1 minute to walk over there, doesn't really matter. But in a moment-to-moment decision making, that really matters. And so in the rules, I just want to say there's 3 distances and you can move from one to the other during a moment. So during the moment, you can say there's an enemy, he's far away from you, and you spend 1 moment to move near the enemy, and then you spend 1 moment to move it close to you, right? And that's just moment-to-moment decision making. It's still not combat specifically. It's chasing, it is combat, it is the building is collapsing, where do you want to run? I want to run far away, okay, but you can move near that object, and you can move to that alley because it's close to you, so on. And then that makes this here part of the moment-to-moment decision making important. This here version will always happen in a moment-to-moment decision making, while in a non-moment decision making you can go like this. And so the moment-to-moment decision making is where time is essential and distance rules matter. You can start to say, okay, that takes all the initiative tracking, the turn tracking and so on, that goes away. You just say to the players, what do you want to do now at this moment, and then they can decide themselves who goes first, who does what, whenever. They just resolve their actions, and then the GM says, well, now this is what the monsters do. And there's many OSR games that does this already. They just have the player phase and the enemy phase, where you just say, players, what you want to do now, this is what the enemy does. And so this solves the whole making turn tracking and initiative tracking and distance tracking and all of these things an implicit thing. But then there's the action economy. How do you solve the action economy? Which is just, you say you have an attack action, or you have 3 attack actions during 1 turn. You can spend 2 attack points to do a mega attack compared to something, right? There's all of these rules for attack action points and attack actions and so on, all of these things. There's a bunch of rules of them. So what do you want to do? Well, we can just implicitly add those rules into weapons and armor. I can say the sword is a melee weapon. The target takes d8 damage on a successful body martial arts roll. Right? You just attack with the weapon. This is what the weapon does whenever you want to use it, right? And so whenever the player here says, I want to attack the bad guy, well, this is how this is resolved. You don't have to have attack actions, you don't have to have action points and so on. You can just say, yeah, these are the rules for attacking with the sword. And then you can have many of these keywords into each and every item. You can say the sword, the spear, and the dagger, all of them are melee weapons. So they will have the melee keyword attached to them. And then you just say, oh, this is how melee is resolved. And then you can add other keywords such as thrown, or it's a long weapon, or a ranged weapon, or it's a small weapon, or so on. And so you can add all of these keywords to different items. And you can also, of course, add multiple different keywords to just multiple different things and say the ladder is a long thing that can be used to vertically move you a near distance, right? So just adding text to all the items and saying this is what this item can do. The shovel can shovel a cubic meter per 10 minutes or something. And then of course you can just use armor, where you can say, well, this makes the difficulty to hitting you a 5, right? And so whenever you have a plate mail thing, you can just say, well, the difficulty is 10 to hit you or something. And you can just add these things here. You can just add to the weapons and the armor and the other items, you can just add rules text for this is what this item can be used for, which is a very non-combat thing. And then you will implicitly solve attack actions, not the whole action economy within the role-playing game or the combat-centric role-playing game. So using items to solve the action economy and using moments to solve the whole turn initiative part of combat. This is how I want to implicitly add combat into my non-combat game. And well, if you have any other ideas, just write them down in a comment section, because I love to hear whatever you have for ideas to solve this. I really want combat to not be a specific thing in my game, so if you have any tips or tricks, leave it down in the comments. And while you're down there, please click the like, share and subscribe button, because, well, I like that kind of things too. And remember to share this with your GM, they'll probably like it. See you around.